more now those hard skills, you know, and a lot of what I'm sure you've already been trying or seeing and doing. But again, just looking at them in a different way of, you know, what are they? Why should we build them? How can we? And maybe when, you know, and the language around when is important, and that is a component I didn't speak too much to, but as I speak more to parents, I'm started taking a different scope on this too and learning ways to present it to parents or guardians that helps them on the journey. That's a different element than initially, right? For years it's been educators and therapists, but now parents are sort of becoming more the advocate and realizing if I don't start soon or have that idea, you know, to help the schools along, it will go much further down the line. Not everywhere, you know. So hard skills are teachable abilities or a set of skills, right, that are easy to, what? Who thinks they know? What would you do? Would they be something easy to master quickly, quantify, or build over time? Just raise your hand if you think you know so you can win some amazing time cards. Tell my friend. Yes, exactly. Quantify. Basically, right, we take that data, we can see the results. There you go. You're so welcome. So quantify, I mean, it's a big word. It sounds so fancy. It's really, you know, your data. They're measurable, right? These hard skills, we can see how did they do, right? What was the end result? And you track that over time versus soft skills are harder. Yes, we can do a plus and a minus. They had eye contact, things like that, but it's not quite the same. Yeah, tell me.
One of the things about elementary, now that I'm hearing all this, and I think
Yes.
we are working on some of those soft skills, is we started a social skills group, and I know,
Love it.
and it's not that, it was just trying to make sure that we were getting those skills. In fact, we'll send out emails. I'll go in the classrooms and do groups, and we'll connect with ABA therapists, the guidance counselors, hey, come see us, we're doing this.
Wow.
And then we're doing it in small groups. But that's, I mean, I think about that. It's our second year doing it, and we're trying to bring in the educators and get more support.
Okay. Good.
We are excited about it. That's one way. We're working on those same skills.
Exactly, exactly.
In middle school.
Good. What do you do in the soft skill group? Is it different topics?
Well, yeah, we
Or the social skills,
a lot of
I'm sorry.
different curriculums.
Okay.
And we just spent the last 2 days doing a PD, getting ready for this year, and we're looking for better ways to measure it. Like we just said,
Right.
it's hard.
It is.
But we see it, I can hear in our conversations on the way to social skills, how beneficial. We talk about, okay, now you're going into the classroom, how do you enter the classroom?
Yes.
I want you to look at what everyone's doing.
Okay.
And then we're building those self-regulation skills, and so
Right?
it is.
The monitoring, exactly. Yeah, that's wonderful. One area I like to start with when looking at hard skills is this concept of sort of like a task box or a box that has tasks in it, right? They could be called work skill bins, anything you think, you know. They're really just compartments that have those different materials, and they're short and structured. They're not meant to be go button shirts for 2 hours, right? That's not the goal. You will not like me tomorrow. And, you know, a mix of things they're successful at and then things that are challenging, and a range if you can. So I brought a few from my classroom to show you. And we can kind of look a little more at them. Typically there's 4 types. You can do assembly tasks, there are sorting, things that are like more of that put in, and then also some coordination tasks. And I know this is like OT's strength, so bear with me. You know, you guys really understand this sort of probably more than me even in that sense. But what I like is, in my room, I'll assign, you know, 3 numbers, and they'll take that first number and they find it and they get the bin. And then they go back with the bin, and this is again my 11-year-olds, my 12-year-olds, the younger crew. On the front, it says how to do the task. So my goal is that in theory, they'll take it, see how to do it, and independently complete it and put it back, preparing them for that independence, or learning to ask for help if something's tricky, or when it's done, not just sitting, right? Realizing, oh, I need to get the next thing and not be prompted, or things like that. That's your goal with your initial task box time, you know. And it can be in so many areas. I have up here, you know, different filing tasks, buttoning the shirts, sorting the silverware, the socks. And a lot of these ideas are in the curriculum just to help you. So you could take really a lot of the activities that are in the 4 modules that we'll speak to and make task boxes for each one. I do just pre-teach it, and then again we'll do it whole group and later down the, you know, through the years. But again, it's just that initial seeing it the language of it. Yep.
Curious, how many tax boxes are in your class?
I know, 111. It's a sickness. I like to yard sale, and like, you know how you could like, you know, it's just what we do. And so yes, there's just too many, but every year the tutors in my room are like, what's your goal this year, you know? How many more? Again, for that variety too, and then you track that. You know there's probably 10 shirts. How many did they button, successfully? Were they independent? Did they ask for help? And that's your data to show the foundation work you've done in those areas. As I've said, there's a lot of benefits. We know, we're really encouraging that independence. And again, I'm not expecting in the middle school year, I haven't had a student yet get all three, do all three, and put them back. I mean, I have to be honest, But I've had them get ones that they're strong, do successfully, put it back, and then wait, which is awesome, or ask for help. So there's been nice moments of increased independence and learning. You're building those sequence skills, practicing those tasks, and using sort of that step-by-step independent presentation. Again, just to show what's expected of it too. What should it look like in the end? Sometimes I struggle with, I need to see what you're expecting of me as the outcome before I can start, because I don't understand what you're saying auditorily to me, right? It's a lot of information. But if you visually show me, I'm like, oh, I can do that, or I understand now. So it's nice to have that paired with it to show them what you're looking for. So then, continuing with hard skills, we've got our task boxes, we've worked on that, and that can be intermittent, that could be through the life of school. It doesn't have to be only in the early years. You could do 10 minutes a day of task boxes, or twice a week. It doesn't have to end, but then paired with that, you get into more of your 5-module focus program, which is the I Can Work piece, where you're focusing in module 1 on the job readiness, and we'll look at that. There's also clerical, retail, food service, and grocery. So I know there's much more to the workforce than this, sincerely, and I don't ever want to limit anybody. We mentioned raise the bar. This is meant to just be a starting point. We've all had to start somewhere. I've done a plethora of jobs that were just to have a job, and I learned from them. I didn't think I'd always work maybe at the bagel shop or, work what have you, but I learned from that job too, and it gave me skills to then go further. So I don't want people to feel that I'm limiting or that it's all I think individuals can do. It's just meant to expose, try variety, and then go from there.
Can I add?
Yeah?
I think that beyond exposing,
Mm-hmm.
it really helps self-esteem.
Good.
I think that it's really important that part of what you're getting at this age, at the younger ages, is that really self-confidence
Yes.
from being able to do a job and do it well and do it independently.
That's wonderful.
And then they're so excited to earn some
Right.
money.
Yes.
And that they've done it themselves.
I agree.
The pride.
Oh, I love
All of that
that.
is very, very important
Mhm.
because there's a lot of other things that are going on, especially with this population, that really challenges their self-esteem.
I know, I agree, and that's what drives me the most, is that I want all individuals to feel that they can be successful and contribute to society. And it doesn't have to look a certain way. You can contribute in a way that you feel you are, and getting up every day and having a place to go and a purpose is for everyone, right? We all deserve that feeling and to be a part of that, and I agree that the early years of building that confidence and having, I was saying to Sue, like, if we have the pre-teach, there is that level of less anxiety when you go into the real environment of it. At least that's our hope, right? There's a little bit of, oh, I've seen this, I've done this, okay. Other things are overwhelming right now, but at least I have that skill set to go back to, and I have that confidence, hopefully, in that. Or that ability to say, this was too hard, right? We learn and we'll practice through this reflection on the tasks. So learning to say, I didn't really like this today, and talking about why, so they can learn over time when in other areas, stay confident, even if it's hard, but just express you didn't like it, right? Or that it's not for you. So you don't feel shut down because you couldn't do it. So in the job readiness area, a big thing for me is vocabulary. Again, just helping understand the language people use, You go to TJ Maxx and they're like, go talk to your supervisor, or, what have you, and it's like, I don't even know, or you have coworkers and some of that, so understanding those terms that are used. And these are just some examples. You would obviously use it also based on where they're working or in-house jobs and off campus. But initially, if they aren't in a work environment and you're just exposing to some of those concepts, there's all vocabulary related lessons and visuals, and I Can Work to help support the language around some job setting. And then a variety of tasks are within that module. We're really looking at work-appropriate behaviors. You know, we spoke to some of that through role-playing, video modeling, you know, group discussions. Again, this is all sort of in an environment that isn't the community yet. So you're really trying to look at what you're doing in small groups, in your classroom, or at home. So this is more that preview of it. You know, practice applying for jobs online or the paper version, you know, reading and looking for jobs, you know, all those sort of hard skills of the how do people find jobs, you know, and know what to apply for and where. And then it's also different jobs, uniforms, what to wear for different ones and what have you, you know, dressing right. And then the big one, of course, is that communication. So job readiness is a little bit of that soft skill focus we talked about, right? You're doing more of your soft skill work that we shared in the beginning of those skills that are the social components, whereas the other four are much more of the hard skills. Everything has visual supports, you know, but you don't have to utilize them. So even how to do a time card has a visual support poster if you needed it, or you don't need it, you know. There's time cards included in the program. Just again, when you go to do those tasks that we're gonna speak to, there is something to them signing in on a time card. It frames that you're ready to work or that it's work time, just like getting the cart at the grocery store. You know, it becomes your prompt of, okay, I may be in my classroom, but now it's a different, you know, it's not what we were doing before, I'm in a work mode. So I really like the prompt of the time card and the use of that. It helps first, last name recognition, you can practice signatures, time, reading even, you know, analog, digital, tracking time. You can track how much they made in a week, how many hours they worked. You know, there's so many levels just around this one little time card. You know what I mean? Like, it's remarkable. Yes.
Do you use that with the task boxes by any chance?
I have with certain friends. I have. Yes, you can use them with anything, I feel. Anything you feel is sort of preparing, like, okay, now we're in work mode. Oh, yeah. Sign in, friends, right? You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's something simple, you know, but it's remarkable. And you can modify it, too. I have individuals that initially I have things where they're sort of sticking the time because they're not writers, right? But I'm showing them, or they have name stamps because they're not writers. But you can still use a time card, you know what I mean? And we're still gonna work and, you know, all that. So raising that bar, just giving them those skills to access it differently, you know? And then also the visual supports for all the lessons just show sort of if we're talking about an office worker, you know what I mean, you'd see a picture. If we're talking about different ways to greet, there's visuals, but then there's also the text version that just has the words. So you'll see I really found I needed 2 to 3 levels of one lesson in a classroom now, right? I need my reader, my non-reader, and then now I'm working on augmentative communication sort of systems where it's fields of 2 and, you know, Velcro pieces that it's sort of, what job are we learning about today? Office worker, you know, or chef, and they pick. And, you know, again, raising the bar for everyone, right? So whether you're nonverbal, you still have a purpose in this life and you're still going to, you know, I want you to feel successful and that you have a voice. So it's creating that for everyone in different ways. And I can, again, after this workshop, if you have, you know, you want to learn more or reach out to me, there's more I'm doing that I couldn't fit into all of this that I'd love to share, you know, especially in the area of maybe more augmentative communication, you know, and building those skills. So now in Module 2, it's just a clerical, and this is, again, not something maybe we see as much vocationally after high school, but working on more the attending to it, caring about the outcome of how did you fold the paper, you know, the mailings, the labeling, working on sort of filing, some of those hard skills just to see over time, did they like working with office supplies or filing or those tasks of stapling and what have you, or was it miserable, right? An area that they really didn't like, and we won't immediately go down the area of clerical or office setting for work. You know, you're trying to see through variety, again, what's working, what's not. So some of the tasks are things just stuffing and sealing envelopes, like I was saying, you know, you're collating, folding business letters into thirds. And this is where that grant came in from Staples too, really helpful. They really will supply you with all of the materials for the clerical area, you know? And I really tried to create it where each task builds. So your first task would be folding in thirds, but you're gonna save that, and the next week you're gonna stuff with those papers. So there isn't a lot of waste, because I know, you know, money-wise, you know, in our rooms we don't have a lot, and I didn't want to be wasteful either. Then you're going to label those and seal them, and then you're going to collate them, so you really use the materials over time, and it builds as a skill. So it's nice in that sense. And again, everything really has a visual support. So when you are filing or when you are collating or labeling, the individual has in front of them a visual of this is acceptable and this is unacceptable. So they know what you're looking for. And at the end of that task, you compare. So you're counting how many envelopes were sealed correctly, and you're collaboratively, not to the student, but with the student, right? So it's important to me and to, I think, anyone to be a part of it. I don't want it to be demeaning. It's more, awesome, you did good, let's look at it. How many do you think, let's compare. You have that conversation around their work completion, and then they're a part of the journey, and they know what you're looking for. And it's okay if all of them are wrong and you share that, right? It's not meant to be, again, like punitive. It's just meant to be like, good job trying, right? And then you track the number. So each module has a data collection sheet that I'll show you later, and you can just easily, and it kind of guides how many were done and things like that to give you a nice visual breakdown of all the tasks. The retail module is number 3, and again, that vocabulary is so important to me, and I had looked at, they were going to kind of like a TJ Maxx or places like that for off-campus work at the high school level at the school I was at. So they were sizing shoes, pairing them, putting them in boxes for TJ Maxx, hanging the shirts, putting the, like the size marker on the hanger, those kind of skills. So backed that up and kind of thought, okay, let's practice, how do you put it on a hanger, right? On a shirt without ruining the top, things like that. Matching the socks and folding them. So life skills embedded with a vocational expectation too. But again, exposure, things like even sizing and pricing the clothes. I worked with the Gap, and they donated their folding boards, and they gave me their price gun. I just went into my local one that I go to a bit, and he was like, hey, and I'm like, I'm a teacher. You'd be surprised some of the things like work environments will give you in a small amount to kind of bring back to your room, especially if you say, here's this program, this is what I'm using, this is what I'm doing. Like there's a reason for it, they're very willing. It's amazing in a way. It's just being comfortable to ask or, getting that inside, person, or just shopping at the Gap regularly. Again, paired, those visuals, I can't say enough about how much I've found that really increased the independence in the students I've been supporting. There's even for each activity a way to set up your work area. So if you have someone who is more independent but you really want to show that, I've given them the bin of everything and been like, set it up, you know what I mean? You're gonna staple today, go get that box, but use this visual and set up your work area, because that's important, right? How are the materials laid out? It's not just dump them and go. You want to be a little bit more systematic, right, as you would at work, hopefully, or what have you. And then again, even visuals on how to set up the shoes. You have your sizing tags you can just print out and use. A lot of the things that you need to implement the tasks with the visuals are in there for you to just print out. Because again, I found I was kind of making it all. I was adding visuals to everything. I was doing all of that. So I really ended up wanting to do something that you could just kind of have, print, and use as best as I could, Same with that strong vocabulary in Module 4 related to food service. So you'll see a pattern, and I thought that was important, in the individuals as well as educators and professionals. There is a routine to the curriculum. So there's a language that's consistent. They all start with vocab. Everything has data collection. You have your KWL. So there's a nice flow and routine of it that you'll sort of come to. So it becomes predictable, but still interesting, right? There is something to a routine and a system, paired with also spontaneity. Things that they practice, setting and clearing tables, assembling place settings, prepping, the condiments, even making change, and foundation pieces. We could always make things more challenging or also modify. So these are just sort of task ideas that we could always make different levels, or then take and apply in an in-house job or an off-campus place. And those visuals of acceptable and unacceptable, all of the vocabulary cards or things you're filing, all those words are on cards to just print out and use to help with that piece too, or the matching to materials. And again, they can even be used as in a task box. You can print a lot of those vocabulary pieces and have them match or, sort, or, even that elementary learning. It could be just the vocab, right? That would be a nice start. It doesn't need to be too much. And again, looking at things like even that concept of grocery items that are soft or cold or not cold, or where they're stored. In my classroom, we're still working on that every year. Those how to bag them, like why and where, right? Feeling them, like understanding. So really like practicing even why cleaning supplies go separately, right? Why you refrigerate things. So the concepts around grocery and that language, but then additionally practicing even role playing. You know, I have a little grocery store in my room and they get a list and they have a cart or a little basket. Again, Trader Joe's, they gave me baskets, they gave me bags. You know, I went in and just said, I want to set up a grocery store, what have you. So they helped me get, started. So just to, again, use real materials is your best bet, right? You want to make everything as real as you can. The grocery store is a little tricky because cold items, are hard. So doing your best in that sense. I have a fridge in my room because we work so much on life skills that I can do that. But if not, working on even noticing if it says frozen or refrigerated helps, and then you just talk about it if you can't have cold items, and those visuals of how to support what gets sorted where, what are different items, eggs, cold items, hard items. All right, it's a last quiz question. And I know I've been saying a lot of information. Does anybody know the 5 modules of I Can Work? You want to try? Okay. Okay, yes. Good. Yep.
Food.
Yes.
Groceries.
Oh, good job. Very good. So yes, job readiness, clerical, retail, food service, and grocery. Nice job. So that data collection piece, I think, I don't want things to be driven by data because we all know, sometimes we feel that pressure, right? I get that. I do think it helps show, though, all that you're really trying to do, right? So hopefully you feel your data is really showing the work you're doing and not feeling like it's the opposite, right? And it is a nice way to show that variety, that exposure, and then, what is working and what isn't, or what areas we're going to focus on more. So in each one, there's an observation table, and you'll see all the points. We're looking at how many completely, were completed correct. Did they follow the sequence? Were there any adaptations? Were there things that we did to modify? Again, so that you learn, and then you go back another year, and you look back, and then you try it again and compare. It is meant to be something that you wouldn't just do, as I said before, Module 1 once. You could really do it twice in a school year and then go back to it the next year, and you may be going up a level with it, but you're still coming back to it. And you're seeing, are they retaining it? Are most of you supporting individuals more than 1 year? Right? That's my world too. So you have that opportunity to kind of compare over time. Otherwise, I've sent a lot of my workbooks that I've created with the data to the following case manager just to have even an idea too, this is what we've done. Don't reinvent the wheel, go from here, right? Don't start over, just kind of build if you can. Yes?
Is there a way that you build in the generalization of tasks so that they can see that there's some uniformity across tasks in terms of the way you would communicate or the way you would comport yourself or the way you would approach a task, when you would ask questions? Because I know that one of the most difficult things that a lot of these kids grapple with is how to generalize these skills.
You're right.
So you can teach them the rote skills, and that's great, but they're not getting context and they're not generalizing. So if we're wanting to think about this as foundational, as what maybe is a rite of passage that we all went through when we were teenagers as first jobs, what are you building in to help them really think about this in a bigger way, especially when so many of them are fixated on the details and can't get to that big picture?
True, that's true. There is an interest inventory that we try to track through Desire and working with the individual to sort of say, what are areas you want? What do you think are skills you're good at? What are things you like to work at? What have you? And then after that, looking at this, I tend to then go to my team and say, so we've done this foundational work, where are we generalizing and how? So can the occupational therapist work, maybe we did food service in my room, can you work for OT in the cafeteria? Can they assemble the silverware at a different setting? And then come back to me and let me know. The point you're making that I find helpful for even me personally is, where does that information go, right? So whether I've said to my occupational therapist, please try that and let me know, I should have a better place to put the generalizing and how that's going. So this doesn't have that, but I like that idea of, we did this, we had this success, but where's the data to show they could do it elsewhere? So that is important. So that isn't necessarily in this curriculum yet, but I do think it is crucial. And it's as I'm going on and learning, you know, and trying and hearing, more things keep coming up, and I love it. So I think it eventually will become part of that, because it should be. I agree. Because I do find that's the biggest challenge, is taking the skills and doing it elsewhere. You know, going into CVS and purchasing, you know what I mean? Making change. You know, comfortably they can do it with me, but yeah, we go somewhere else and it's still a struggle. You know, the bottom of the observation table has a note section, so I will tend to note there, just, you know, handwrite or type it. And then when I go to IEP meetings, I always bring this because I love everybody to see the information, all that they're doing. You know, like I present it in a way of positive, you know, like, look at this. We've done 5 modules, talked about all of this, what have you, you know. But yeah, it is that next level that we really also have to build on. I agree. I think we tend to get a little stuck in the classroom setting and not as much to the community as much as we want, you know. It's overwhelming to go into the community sometimes, especially if you're working, you know, you don't have a lot of support or you're not sure. And so even understand, you know, we don't get that one-on-one time as much, or I don't. I go into the community with 7, and so I struggle with knowing who did what well in a way. You know, we get back and I'm like, okay, we went to CVS, you know what I mean? So again, looking at that a little more, and the more I work with the population in my classroom, it's only been my 3rd year, I'm learning so much about the spectrum and sort of those skills too, and the generalizing need. So always growing, but thank you. I wish I could say yes. So a big thing for me, and it's always been this way, and with the individuals I support, is taking the time to reflect. You know, I spoke in the beginning about making it meaningful and not just being, go get box 43 and, you know, we're done. You know, really giving everyone an opportunity to share what they thought of the task they did. So it's still your data. They have a jobs I completed form, and one is text where they'll just put the date, the task, and what they thought. And there's visual supports of sentences to help individuals kind of have prompts of ways to respond, or they're just freely writing. And then I have a version where you can circle, there's some visuals where it supports sort of an individual that's maybe less of a writer or a reader to say like, oh, I did a good job, you know, or things like that. One thing I found in my classroom recently, that with those in a row, it becomes very routine to just circle, right? It's not a true reflection. They either like the thumbs up, or it's a routine of always that row, what have you. So it wasn't as, you know, rich in evidence as I had hoped. So I ended up making these manipulative based, and so I'm always offering them now like in different ranges, or fields of 2 or 3 if you need, or mixing it up to try and increase real, you know, authentic reflection and thoughts. And then again, you see over time, if on the clerical section, right, they said they didn't like it, but then when you did food service, your data is showing like, oh, I thought I did well, or I was proud. That is a pattern. You know, that's an important trend to look at, because then your hope is to then carry it over to that area in another environment and generalize it and see if the enjoyment in food service or grocery or what have you continues. You know, I think there really is just something important to allowing everybody to have that time to just take in what they did and share how they felt, you know. So that is one component to this that I just always try to encourage. So again, it looks simple like that. You know, it really is a self-advocacy builder. It allows the individual just to reflect, to share, to say it was hard or what was good. You know, and they're learning to say those pieces. And then they get to see over time also just really how much work they've done. It's awesome. You know, you guys would be like, wow, you've really done a lot. You know, it's kind of amazing, especially if you have them sign in and track if they're doing in-house, task boxes, your time, even social skills, right? Like, what did you think?
That's at the elementary level, and how important that is to do that. And,
Right?
And the generalization.
Yeah, good. And it would show even if you put the topic you talked about or what you focused on, you know, and then what they thought, like,
And I
you
see
know.
plenty of opportunities to do that. It's just getting everybody on board.
Yes.
And
True,
Yep.
true. So I keep saying in-house jobs, and I probably should have clarified. Really, it's sort of something you're doing within the community that they're in their school system. You know, you're not leaving where you are instructing the individual, you're staying within your environment, but you're accessing, you know, the areas of your school, hopefully. And there's so many jobs. It's just a matter of having the right support, right? And then the right individual to take on someone, right? So establishing that. But again, things in our classroom, we do a lot of services of the copies for educators. We do their classrooms, we clean, we do mail delivery, recycling. There's so many that we do. And it's, just looking at what do people do in my, in my building, and can we come learn from that, So really trying to start that in the middle school years is important, I think, because sometimes I'm seeing they're starting it in the high school level, but that's really when you should be going into the community more, right? Because we want to be accessing the community and the jobs there in high school, at least I would hope 4 to 6 years, versus just starting your in-house jobs. Although if doing that, that's fine too. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just my push is to really try and get more of those in-house jobs in the middle school level. Yes?
I don't know if this is a helpful comment, but for the OTs in the room, when my son was in elementary school and he needed a sensory break from the classroom, they actually had him deliver mail because it was weight bearing.
Yes.
So they would make him carry heavy things around the school and go into the various classrooms so that it both calmed him down to get him ready for his next class, but it gave him some responsibility.
Yes. And your soft skills are naturally embedded in this. There's no way you're gonna just, you can't be a zombie walking around, right? You have to say hello to who you're seeing, you're delivering, you're accessing your community, right? You're going around your school. There's so much built in those in-house jobs, like you're saying. And confidence. He was important. He had a role.
They called him the mayor.
See? I love that. I love that.
We did something similar to that
Yep.
at one of the schools I worked at, and we attached a positive thought. So when they delivered the mail,
Oh, I love that.
talk about how did you make them feel.
Wow.
And then we were able to,
Good
and
for
then
you.
that sense of pride and confidence that
Yeah.
you can.
It's so nice too to point out, what did you notice? Were they smiling? How did they seem? How did that make you feel to see, that empathy piece? And that's it. Thank you.
And our
Yep.
students love to move.
Yep.
So,
Because I have 1,000 students in our school. Our middle school is massive in Danbury. It's huge. And so that's 150 teachers, right? So you only know your wing, right? It's so hard. And because I'm a community-based program, I don't go to the stuff. It's different what we access. So the only time we do is through those interactions,
and getting back to that, really that connection.
Right, right. I know. Seeing who's in your world, right? Your school, and thinking beyond even yourself. It's oh my gosh. And learning even devices, because a lot of my students use augmentative communication. Learning to engage in that as a professional, right? I'm saying teachers. They'll come up and be here's your mail. And they, learning to pause, wait, what to do, how to ask. It's good for them too, right? For everybody. That's awesome. And then, those off-campus times, where we were talking, I know hotel environments, office, daycare, anything. I could list a gazillion. You can go off-campus, hopefully to a variety of places. I know ultimately the struggle is finding those sites and setting those sites up and having, even for me, the transportation to get there, right? Sometimes that's my struggle as well. But I think the more we encourage and push and show the importance, the more the schools have to recognize too, this is for this population, there is a purpose, and this is just part of their program, and this is what we're going to need to set up, We are the advocates for that, I am not, I'm liked in my district, but I'm a scutch, I'm not gonna lie, I'm tough. They know I'm coming, they know, the high school's you're doing everything in the middle school that we wanna do in the high school, and I'm well, figure it out, because it's been done. Step it up, right? Raise the bar. I'm sorry that I'm not, but I'm they did these things younger, but then now think differently, right? So I'm challenging the high school level to go up.
That's, I think, going to be my biggest challenge.
Yes.
I think everything we're doing, we're not aggressive enough and we're too late.
Yeah.
So, and I think the task boxes, embarrassed to even say it, but the freshmen do it.
Right.
And
No,
the
that's common.
teachers put a huge amount of time and effort, and it's funded,
Okay.
but they put them all together, and I can see there being a little bit of pushback because they don't want to give them up.
Right.
Why are they going to give them to the teacher at the upper elementary school when they can all be offered it through
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I'm just thinking about
No, it's
that.
true.
Some of the personal struggles I've had
Yes.
in trying to grow this program.
Okay.
The middle school is great, but the high school, there's a little bit more, I don't know, I'm not as down at the high school. I'm only there one day. So
Okay,
I'm very
okay.
ancillary. And
Oh, I
So
understand.
it's
You are
different.
valued there, or you should be.
it's
but yes.
interesting.
Yeah.
They love me, but they
Yeah.
don't include, this is a personal struggle. They don't include me in conversations. It's
Oh, that is really tough, because you're a
it's-
part of the whole.
Oh, huge, yeah. But anyway, I'm just wondering, I'm seeing this as something that, and the upper elementary school teacher, or OT, this is gonna add to her job, which she's already overwhelmed.
Oh, I see what you're
So,
saying.
you know,
I thought
mean,
you
it's
meant.
like I see this shift
Okay.
as being across multiple buildings and impacting multiple people.
Right, right.
And
Yeah.
it's interesting.
I know, it's looking to the schedule, what do we prioritize when, right, in my own classroom, because there are still academic goals, of course, but I'm really trying to also, again, you know, do this task time and do this vocation time. You know, and with this, 20 minutes twice a week or 20 to 30 minutes, including the reflection time, really is substantial. You know, it really doesn't need to be much more than that, you know, or it could be broken into 15 minutes if you felt like every day, or, you know, it doesn't, I don't want it to be a burnout, right? You want it to stay learning, light, let's compare, let's reflect, and let's try again, you know, tomorrow, right? Things like that. So yeah, don't feel it has to take so much of your time. It just gives you that plan. And if you do two 30-minute times a week, you'll run all 5 modules twice in a year and have a really nice comparative, you know, database of they did this in September, here we did it again at this time, let's look at this year, and then it shows you, you know, how that went. Yeah, please.
Sorry, just on the topic of pushback.
Okay.
Amazingly, recess in elementary school is an excellent opportunity for socialization schools, organizing, you know, different activities. And it took me 3 years to get them to understand that para, in my opinion, it's not their break,
Right.
should be working with
Oh,
the
yes.
child out in the playground, as well as at lunchtime integrating them with their gen ed class kids
Right.
and not having the special needs kids sit at their own
I know.
table.
I know.
And that took 3 years, but I finally got it in the IEP as,
Okay.
as a
Okay.
goal. And you just have to figure out a couple of the steps.
Right.
Because they always push back on you if you can't quantify it.
Right.
So
Okay.
it's just FYI, if you're working with some of the
Right.
elementaries, I mean, I fought it all the time. I'm like,
Did
it's
you?
not their break.
Yeah, I like
You
the
know?
idea of saying, you know, during recess, we're going to follow this plan, right?
Right.
So I would present to my team, you know, Susie's going to work on this at recess, and here's what you're looking for, here's your, you know, what have you. Because you're right, that I would think the person implementing it would need a frame of what is expected at recess and what they're helping, which is fine, you know, and then it comes back to training, following through, making sure the pair is comfortable, although should be because they're in that environment, right, with
Yeah.
some of that. But I agree, there are so many strong learning moments, right, and opportunity that we do at times sort of, because we're you know, we're busy and we're going and we're moving and grooving, but in those, for those individuals, it's crucial.
Oh, and I would
Crucial
bring the
learning time.
resources in, the basketball, the soccer,
Yes,
the,
yes. Oh,
you know, the
wow.
t-ball. I mean,
Really?
it was out of my pocket, but you know, I
Good
just
for you.
gave it to them, and then it was up to them to make the excuse on why they didn't use it.
So did you
Just
publish
so-
that curriculum for recess learning?
I
We need
know,
it.
right?
Get it going.
No,
Get
I
it
just
going.
beat them with a baseball.
Yeah, exactly. That's one method. No, but right, like I think there's
Because
important
that's where
things around that.
communication and
I
you know,
know.
some of the task, group leadership.
Yes,
you know,
exactly.
generalization,
Yeah.
you know, into. So
Yeah.
just a
I
ideas for
agree.
you
No,
guys.
it's wonderful. Exactly. So much. I agree. 1,000%.
years.
Wow. But you got
I finally got it.
it. Okay, good.
And
good.
I went out and watched, and then when they didn't, I tattletale.
That's awesome. No joke. But again, like, I think unfortunately, and I was saying that in my own district, you know, there's an uncomfortability to being an advocate for things that you know are right? It's not always easy to stand behind something that you know is right for the individual, especially when you're in a meeting with all these professionals that are just like looking back or, you know, pushing back, right? So it is like crucial and tricky, but if you go in knowing your facts and some of your background and your why, and you stay student focused, as I always try, it really, you know, ultimately, you know, hopefully your voice gets heard or some changes get made, you know. But it is slow. It is slow. I'm not, you know, this has been published since 2013, and we're now in 2018, right? And I have been speaking and doing this, and there's just starting to get this like flow of like, oh, you know, like, yeah. So I'm glad, but it's interesting. You know, we're still moving forward slowly a smidge. So let's keep trying, you know. And then again, home. You know, I know home is so important. I have 2 of my, you know, my own boys that I do this with as well. You know, I speak to, this truly is for anyone. I know we come with that lens and we want it to be helping our individuals prepare, but my own need the help with interview skills and chores and accountability and work readiness, right? Everybody. So really taking the time again, you can have a little center, and the summers can get long, so it's like having that set up with a little reward where they'll practice sorting and folding and things. Now it's things that I need folded, so it works for me, right? It helps me, but also gives them that sense, confidence, independence, exposure, you're using some of that language, and things like that. So really tying in home, responsibilities with then school and tying those connections, because we all know home and school, if you're on the same page, it's amazing, the growth, right? I mean, it's just tenfold, whereas and again, your 6 to 8 hours at school are strong and important too, if nothing's at home followed through, but if you can get both going, you just are gonna see that progress, differently. So these are just suggestions. These are things I find, let's say in the ideal world, right? We could really start those elementary years with the task box system, really encouraging responsibility and chores, working on the empathy, the social skills, the communication, and then also vocab. Those middle school years really trying for, again, more of what jobs are in your community, really breaking down what do you see every day, right? What is even your community? I know in my classroom for middle school, I'm working on what is a community, that concept of it's not just you, but beyond you, right? Exploring the materials used, and then what are those work expectations? Because a lot of times, I want to be a fireman, right? I'm like, great, I love that. Let's look at what that entails or talk to a fireman. And then when you learn all that goes into it, they're like, oh, you know what I mean? Or they're inspired, but it's important to really understand what does that job entail? And if it's not all you're wanting, what part of that could we do, right? Looking at it as a whole and then breaking it down. And then also, again, those in-house job opportunities in the middle school years. So not necessarily off campus yet, although if you can go, I mean, why not? But if you are at least trying to really access, some jobs around your building. And then really trying in those high school years to keep going with the communication piece, really working on time management, work attire, keeping in-house jobs going if you can, but then additionally those off-campus weekly pieces. If the in-house is too much, then obviously you wouldn't implement that in the schedule if you couldn't allot it, or if you were going off-campus the majority of the day. Some people go 3 hours a day, so they wouldn't do more vocation in their room. Others only go twice a week, so you can do in-house on the off, but just again, keeping those skills fresh. And then really trying to work on the community-based opportunities, applying, interviewing, role-playing. So with regard to all that I talked about, which was quite a bit, and I'm sorry, friends, and we're ending a smidge early, which is probably not a terrible thing. Are there questions? I know we've talked throughout at this point related to the hard skills or suggestions. Everybody feels good? Was it helpful? Did you feel like, okay. Oh, I'm so glad, good.
This gives me ideas on how to really get into the elementary
Okay.
school. I think we're on, but even more of a passion.
That's awesome.
She is absolutely.
Good. Oh, good, I'm so glad. So what I'll do is, I'll clear this a bit if we want it. Oh, tell me, I'm sorry. Yes.
No, just a question.
Please.
You or other
Thank you.
resources to bring this type of presentation to CPACs to help encourage parents, because
Okay.
the more vocal parents or other
Yes.
participants in the educational process are with the
I know you're right.
special ed department.
Yeah, you're right. That is the avenue, yeah.
Because show up at the CPACs, be vocal,
Right.
become the pain in the butt.
I know. Sometimes it's hard to connect with people unless you know someone who is already there, right? At times they view me as obviously like an author, and they're like, it's curriculum, what have you, but if it goes from someone who's like either met me or seen me or is like, oh, I went to this, and then, I could follow up if you were able, to suggest. I definitely do, I can do podcasts like Skype if it's far, or come to Massachusetts, I'm flexible in that sense, but I would love to speak to more parents, especially. I'm telling you, that is an area I'm blown away by this past year. I've spoken to more parents and guardians and grandparents than I have teachers. So that says a lot, right? And I've been doing, that's remarkable to me. But that's okay, Yes.
So I'm looking at your conference from a parent point of view.
Yes.
And I think as parents, we have a huge responsibility to bring up to the IP meetings about what we want about our kids.
I know.
And to break it down so that these
You're
skills
exactly
can be
right.
worked on. But my question on the other end is, maybe it's my personal issue, but how do you find the interest of the kid? There are so many different things. And when I'm looking at my son, I cannot really understand, and so far nobody was able to understand where he's strong at.
Okay.
And how can we pinpoint that? Maybe that was not the point of your presentation.
No, it's
but,
good. Yeah.
That's the question if I can
Aptitudes.
Is it? Yeah. I would say, has he tried tasks in a variety of areas that are sort of different, that then has been tracked, where they have said like he was successful at it, or no? Has your son been?
A little bit, but
Okay.
not as much as I now think
Okay.
currently, so I may inquire that.
Yeah, I think again, as long as he's trying variety and then someone's taking the time to look at the success of it, right? And then also allowing him to reflect. Did you like it? Did you not? Taking that time for him to pause, whether he's circling a response of what he thought or writing it, and then looking at that over time to see, is there an area that really stood out for him, or small areas? My students are not going to say, oh, I like doing this, I don't like doing that, or it's not going to happen, and that's okay. But through other means, right, videos or cards or even prompts written, we're getting a little more feedback and conversation, right? And I am seeing various responses. So I do think if you keep trying and asking at the end of things to your son, did you like it or not? Is he able to answer that, or would it be more circling?
He's able to answer that,
Okay.
but his attention span is very short.
Okay.
And when he says that he loves something and then we do that, and a couple of minutes later he wanders. And
Okay. He might still love it though, you're right, but it's his attention. So
so
two components,
what he
too.
likes and what he can do are not matching yet.
Okay,
They
okay.
are going maybe. I would like to say parallel, but not
Okay.
matching.
And he's 14, is that right?
He's 18.
18, okay, okay. Were you gonna interject or share, please?
I guess what I was going to say until you made your last comments is to follow what their interests are, because my son also has major focus issues, but when there's something that's of interest to him, he can sit and, he loves transportation, which is pretty common, and he likes to make PowerPoint presentations on all kinds of aspects of transportation, like really professional level slide decks.
Right.
And he'll sit and do it for 5 hours if left at the computer for 5 hours. But if you ask him to fold clothes, you'll get him to fold one shirt and he's out of the room.
But on that, could we say to your son, I need a PowerPoint on cats? Now, he might not like cats, but will he complete a PowerPoint on cats?
Yeah, because
So-
he likes doing computer work.
Exactly.
I hear what you're saying, and I think that part of the key is following their interests. So you said that they haven't dovetailed yet, but
Right.
I think that that's the first place to actually start.
So you're trying to find what he's interested in or what he will attend
Each
to?
time he's home and
Okay.
he's in a residential school, I'm gonna pick him up now.
Okay.
He wants to go to the park and he doesn't want to come back home and he wants to play there. But when he plays there and he plays with maybe 2 or 3 kids basketball and he sees other kids passing by, he just goes and talks to them and he forgets about the first group of kids that he started to play with.
Okay.
Or he still plays tag, which is, he is functioning below his age. But when we come home and I want him to do something else, or he says it's raining, he cannot go out and he doesn't know what to do, all he does is to watch soccer and basketball, but it does not relate to the life skill. That's what I'm thinking, and I'm trying to figure out how can we help them.
Right.
And I don't want to guide him because of what I'm interested in.
Yes, good
But
point.
on the other hand, I want to guide him with something that he can do and he likes.
I know.
And that part is very obscure still.
So he likes sports and things like that? Could he work, you know, even like the YMCA or like, you know, be in environments where he's like collecting whatever they played with, or, you know, in that kind of like recreational environment, and see if he could attend there?
We'll try that, but.
If he enjoys those
the
things, or soccer.
Residential school is having hard time to do that.
Okay,
And,
okay.
I live in Brookline, the school is not in Milford. So
Oh, wow.
for me, it's not doable
Okay.
to go there and commit and be
Yeah. Okay.
most of the time. So we'll see.
Okay, yeah, stay on that track, you know, and that desire to find what, you know, and like you were saying, dovetail, you know, find for him if you can. And we know, like, even for all of us, you know, your job should be what you love and your passion, but it's hard to, right? And it's not going to be fulfilling every day, and it's not, you know, it's not this dream. So there are going to be some tough things you have to teach individuals to manage through, right? It's not all rainbows. It is going to be a little challenging, but then you're earning money, or you're doing this, or, you know, you're really tying into the why, hopefully, to keep it motivated. And for him, I wouldn't have work be very long. You know, his goal initially should be shorter and successful, reinforce maybe with soccer, with watching soccer, and then go work again, you know, and now go back to reinforcing that time. So like earning and working up to a longer time frame. But focus and enjoyment, you know, and desire, you know, it's sort of like two issues for him a bit, right? The attending and then also what he enjoys. So finding what he enjoys first will help lead, I hope, to more focus because he enjoys it. Yeah. Yeah.
I worked and volunteered at a church,
Mhm.
and there's some programs out there. If you are religious, with a couple of sacraments that are very ABA specific, they come with cards. It's by
Oh, wow.
Sadler. But you know, if you go to your church, and I ended up doing a lot of, you know, different things. There are organizations. There's an office. I mean, I would go and ask if my son could participate, because to me, I'm going to push back on a church and say,
Right. Open arms. That's true.
Don't you
It
have
should
a
be.
mission?
That's true, right? For
you know,
all.
and I'm
Yeah.
sorry, but you know, there's another way to force it.
It is good though. I even my own, you know, parish, they put packets together for CCD every year, and they were asking for volunteers, and I was like, well, I'll just take it to my classroom. Like, you know, let us tie into that. You don't need to have volunteers come, or you know, but having them break that idea, because they've always had volunteers for like 30 years make the packets, was hard, right? And I was like, hold on, you know, like we've worked on these skills, we could, you know, what have you. So it was a big change, but they did. They ultimately were like, okay, you know, they relinquished control. But you're right, you know, finding areas you seek and saying, you know, even the office staff at your own school or wherever you are, there are ways, you know, you can really help them alleviate some of their workload, and it's a win-win, you know, definitely. Well, thank you again, seriously, for a Saturday morning and all the input and the feedback. I learned things. It really was remarkable, and I appreciate it so much. Thank you.
Thank you.